internationals, are they all back and involved this weekend?
No, they're not. Both Stephen Jones and Sean Lamont have had a heavy Six Nations period, and we felt it best, in their best interest and our best interest, in the sort of medium term with the amount of games coming up, that they had a week away completely from rugby. Unless you've played at that level under that sort of pressure and intensity, it's very difficult to understand the strain that these players come under mentally as much as physically. So we felt it was very important that they freshened up really for the challenges that lie ahead.
You just give them a week off.
We've given the both of them a week off. Matthew's slightly different because he hasn't played as much rugby, so Matthew will be involved with us on the weekend.
I suppose you will miss that experience of Stephen Jones coming in there. That's the downside for you, I guess.
Well, not really. I think the way we've developed our younger players over the last 18 months has paid dividends, and Reece is playing superbly well for us. So the fact that Reece has had that exposure, and particularly in the last couple of games, you've seen his performances right up there.
Is that a reward almost for keeping the faith in him, Nigel? There's a few wobbles at the start of the season there.
Yeah, I think so. And I've been quite clear, particularly with younger players, that you have to expose them to the level that they need to play at and the level that they train at for them to progress, and that's the only way that you'll see true progression. And as I've said before, it's been painful at times, but certainly some of these boys are starting to come through for us, and there's a new swathe of players like Davies and Oil as well, who we're exposing now, and in time, those investments are certainly going to pay dividends.
Because you're almost at the stage of the season where you can't really. It must be a difficult decision to gamble in and rest players, because obviously there's so much at stake.
Well, we feel we've got to be able to put as strong a team as we can on the field every game. The fact that we decided not to go with Stephen and Lamont will hopefully pay dividends further down the line. Having said that, the boys who are going to front up are performing well, so we've got a certain amount of confidence in them as well.
The qualification race at the moment, and after what happened last weekend.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's so much to play for at this stage of the season. For lots of people, I suppose, very excited. We'd rather not be in this position, of course, but we are, and it's forcing us to look long and hard at ourselves and really dig deep. I'm comfortable with the way the team's playing. I was really confident going out to Munster last week. I thought we played a reasonable game of rugby. I thought we were inaccurate on a couple of occasions, which cost us. But I felt the game was there for us to win, and we couldn't do it in the end. But we were in the fight. We came away with something which was vital. And similarly this weekend, it's a tough place historically for us to go, Edinburgh, but we've got to come away with something, and I see no reason why we can't get a result at all, particularly the way that we can play. We've got to be a lot more accurate than we were, and I think if you look at our last two games against Ulster, we had that accuracy in our game, particularly when we were kicking and we put a lot of pressure on them. Against Munster, we probably put a lot of pressure on ourselves from that facet of play, and consequently, we gave up good field position and penalties in some cases. So we have to be a lot more accurate and disciplined, and if we can do that within the structure of the game that we're playing, I think that we can be confident.
Can you see it turning into a bit of a dogfight down there? Obviously it's very tight at the bottom down there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a dogfight, there's no doubt about that, and everybody's fighting for every single point. There's a couple of big local derbies going to come up as well, which will be hugely intense with everything to play for. And as I say, I think the innovation to put this into the Magnus League is a real positive move at both the top and the bottom end of the league. And as I say, everything to play for still.
Dragons have won up in Edinburgh, so you feel something to wait for.
Yeah, the Dragons did well up in Edinburgh, and they sort of wore them down in difficult conditions, and they played the conditions really well. I think it's going to be sort of the weather forecast says, a similar type of evening, and we have to play those conditions really well, and that's why our kicking game is going to be very important, and the accuracy of what we do will be hugely important. But we're looking to explore different ways of preparing for this game, because whatever we've done in the past hasn't worked. So Friday's going to be slightly different for the players up there. It's a long day, and particularly when you've got a young group of players, they sometimes find it difficult to prepare themselves properly mentally when they've got so much time on their hands. So we're going to be taking things into our own hands and managing that process for them this time.
Looked at how the Dragons beat?
Yeah, to a certain extent, we've looked at Edinburgh, and part of that was the Dragons game. I think on that particular occasion it was a particularly bad night, and the Dragons just played the conditions well. They didn't do anything particularly spectacular. Edinburgh tried to play rugby in difficult conditions, and the Dragons just cut them down really, and played the conditions better.
Is there any reason for having such a poor record at Murrayfield?
It's we scratch our heads about it. I think somebody spoke to me a while back about how intimidating Toulon was going to be in the Amlin Cup, and I said that's from a player's point of view, that's absolutely brilliant, because that atmosphere raises your game and you want to play in those occasions. I think it's almost the reverse in Edinburgh, because you've got a massive stadium with probably a couple of thousand if you're lucky there, and I think most teams, it's not only us, lots of teams struggle up there, and they struggle to get themselves possibly mentally up for that game, and that's why I mentioned earlier that that's the big challenge for us, is we've got to get ourselves mentally right for this game, and that's why we're going to manage that whole process on Friday.
Is it something that concerns sort of managers and players, having never won there? Is that something they think about? Or?
Frustrates you, it really does frustrate you, and it, like I've said, I suppose it challenges you to think about things differently, because you can't keep on doing the same old thing and not getting the results you want, so you've got to look to change things then, and that's what we've looked to do.
You happy the players are focused on this particular game, because you've got these two derbies and then you've got the Amlin Cup, you've got this big April?
Oh yeah, absolutely, I have no doubt at all about that. I think first and foremost there's places up for grabs in the two big games coming up, but this is a massive game in its own right. And we've looked at the blocks. We haven't even spoken about any games after the Edinburgh game. Our focus solely has been the Munster game and this game, and nobody's even speaking or even looking further ahead than that. We're playing on the Friday night, which can be a very positive thing if we get a result, because it can put pressure on the other teams involved. So we know we can sort of draw first blood on Friday if we get it right.